curious. So if you guys don't know, our contributor program / ambassador program, we've got 3 contributors up here who I'd love to ask about what it means to influence on social media. I hate the word influencers. I don't know how you guys feel about the term influencer, but somebody called me an influencer the other day, and I really hated it. And then it got worse. They called me a blogger. And I was like, oh, that's even worse than influencer. So we have 3 bloggers on stage, or 4, I guess. And so, yeah, I would just like to start. So you're all from Texas. So I kind of want to, go down the line and kind of briefly talk about, what the stronghold of Texas means going forward in these culture wars that are taking place around the nation. Anybody want to go first? Kind of just talking about that.
I did not drink enough caffeine for such a big question. Good morning, everybody. What the stronghold of Texas means?
Well, so
okay, guys.
Texas is like the catalyst of conservatism right now in the country. Some people say it's Florida.
Right.
And there's a nationwide culture war going on. And how does Texas fit into that, and why is it important?
I would always say that we need to focus on the fortification of our state, absolutely, because we often do hear the rhetoric that Texas is leaning more purple, like every election cycle it does. I mean, I definitely do fear that we will eventually turn blue if we don't continue to fight for Texas and, fight for our ideals here. So, yeah, the fortification of our state, very, very important. Kendall, add more to this, please.
I would say, Texas people think is a super red state. Like Savanah said, it's, people think it's purple now. And I think the biggest problem is within our school boards. And a lot of you guys are in colleges or maybe even high schoolers in this room. And I think the power is really put into Gen Z's hand at this point of we're the ones that need to affect change in our generation and stand up to the school boards. It can't just be parents because, the older generation has kind of come and went, and it's kind of in our hands now. So when it comes to the state of Texas, we really need to make sure that we are those political leaders, and that means you guys going out into your communities and not just being a part of Turning Point chapters, getting involved with campaigns, and just getting involved more within your communities and getting your friends involved, because I think that's really where change is going to happen.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And then I would also say, too, Morgan, you did such a great job with that. I love that. That was beautiful. So I would say that I'm more of a journalist, guys. I got into this being out on the ground, covering a lot of the riots, the border, what's going on with Americans. And I think, being called a leader is kind of crazy to me. But I think one of the most important things that I've learned with having a leadership type position is that anybody can hold that in their community, in their classroom. All you have to do is not be afraid to stand up and speak out for what you know is right, which can be a very scary thing, but each person in this room is capable of making a very positive change, because you also don't know who's watching you, right? I mean, whether it's a liberal teacher in the classroom, whether it's just an everyday interaction where you are seeing somebody being called out because, I don't know, they don't want to, bend the knee to LGBTQ propaganda or what have you. Standing up for another person, or even standing up for what you believe in, is such an important thing. And just, go forward with that mindset as well, that you never know who's watching you. You never know what you can impact. And yeah, each one of you in this room is a leader that has the ability to make a very positive and impactful change.
Oh, I like that. Cool. I'll be the only one clapping.
Jobob's my biggest fan, guys.
So I'm curious. I'd love to hear from all of you, because all of you have social media presences, but it looks very, very different from each one of you. So I guess in your lane, how do you kind of express things? So, talking about social media is weird, but at the same time, it's necessary because lefties are really, really good at it. So that being said, kind of in your social media demographic, how do you kind of convey your message? What do you feel is important? And how do you continue going forward with that?
So my focus is Gen Z, so all of you guys, and myself included, educational short-form content. That's always what I've loved to do. I kind of started out my entire journey 2 years ago, actually, at YWS, just making TikToks and then talking to the camera and eventually doing long-form. But really my focus is I want to empower and change the next generation of free-thinking leaders, because you guys are the leaders. We are the change, and if it's not us, then who is it? Because nobody's going to fight for our country harder than we are, and because nobody's going to do it for us. So it's really up to us, and that's what, I don't really like the term influencer. I hate it actually.
Blogger.
Or blogger, because every single one of you in this room is an influencer. You all have your own sphere of influence, whether it's just your immediate friend group, whether it's your family. Your parents may not have the same values or agree with you, but you could change that. So that's really my mission, is to just empower the next generation through educational content. I hope that when you watch my stuff, you learn something and not just, and I do man on the street stuff in colleges, and I really just like connecting with my generation.
Cool. Sav?
So, like I said, my focus is more on the journalistic perspective. But again, in the modern day, if you have a cell phone, which I'm pretty sure everybody in this room most likely does, you can potentially be a journalist. And journalism doesn't necessarily have to mean this big investigative thing. But like I said, if you're in the classroom, if you're seeing something in your everyday life, for example, I live in Austin, Texas, and in the men's room in one of the rock climbing facilities that I like to go to, there's tampons. Now, fellas, I don't know what you guys need those for, but apparently in Austin, men use those now. And so, if you see something like that, that's weird. You take a photo of it, you put it on Twitter, you say, hey, what's going on in my community? You go talk to your fellow students. I think that, like I said, anybody in this room has the capability to just be inquisitive, to push back, to ask questions. And, my biggest motto is like, don't be afraid to hurt people's feelings. Like, I kind of wake up every day with the intention, not to necessarily hurt people's feelings, but to push back against the narrative. Because come on, guys, we're living in clown world. It's crazy land every single day here. So, I would say from my perspective, like the journalism is where I kind of focus in on, but I'm looking at a bunch of, future journalists here. Go be inquisitive, go ask questions, and use your platform to elevate other people's voices and weird things you guys are saying in society.
Sav is the most fierce person I know. You
Oh
should
my
see
God,
her
thank
in
you.
these Antifa riots when we were in Davos with Jobob, and that was nuts.
Really quick, sorry, Kendall. Just really, so at UC Davis, did anybody see the footage from UC Davis, going on? So I think I got a call from Sav afterward, happy, fun, bright, kind of joking about it. She's like, oh yeah, I got chased down a corridor by an Antifa mob. And I'm like, that's scary, dude. That's not like...
I'm like, yeah, Jobob, did you have fun taking video from the
No,
inside
I
of the
did
people
not at all.
breaking the windows? I was outside with them, and then they hunted me down afterwards. It was a lot of fun.
So anyways,
You're
sorry,
wild.
Kendall, go ahead.
Anyways, hi guys. My name is Kendall Jones, and I do things completely different than them. I am in the hunting, outdoor fishing world, and I kind of got thrown into it back in 2014. How old are y'all in here? Y'all were maybe 10 in 2014. So I was in college at the time, and I went over on a hunting safari with my dad in Africa. And I grew up hunting. I grew up learning about the outdoors and what conservation is and why hunting was important. And so whenever I went over there, I did my thing, went hunting like I always did. And it was right whenever social media was starting to get big. In 2014, Instagram was maybe 2 years old, 3 years old. Not very many people had it. Facebook was the big one back then. And I posted my trophies on social media, and PETA got a hold of them. And they blasted them, canceled me. I was absolutely canceled all over the world. I was on Germany's biggest newspaper as the baby-faced killer. And at that time, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I saw these headlines of the media saying that I killed these endangered animals. None of the animals I killed were endangered. They said I killed species that I didn't kill. And at that point in time, I was like, the media has a narrative and they're lying about it, and I need to get my voice out there because it looks like such a horrible thing that they're doing to me whenever they don't know the true meaning and the education behind it. So since 2014, I've grown a following, helping people to understand what hunting is about, why we do it, the importance of hunting. And they wanted me to just be completely silent, back down, stop doing what I absolutely loved. And I was like, I am not going to let this stop from my passion. And since then, I have gotten a great following who does support me and doesn't just want me dead. Just my biggest thing is getting new people into the outdoors, helping the next generation get involved and learn what it's all about. Because I know, seeing those pictures, people are like, what in the heck? But it's not until after you learn about it, why it's important, what it actually does to wildlife, and the conservation behind it, and what money it brings, and what agencies and all the things that it supports. And so since then, I raised money to be able to take kids on hunting trips, introduce them to the outdoors, and spread the word of conservation. But to go back to social media, I would say sticking true to yourself and sticking true to your values and educating people on it. And be able to talk to people that have a different perspective to you. There's been so many times I have talked to anti-hunters that just don't understand what I'm doing, but they want to ask questions and learn. And if you can have a civil conversation, you don't have to agree with them. They don't have to agree with you. But if you can get your point across, tell your why, and stick true to who you are, I think you can really make an impact. And like both of these girls said, everyone in here can influence someone. If you have a conversation, you are leaving an impact on that person, whether it's good or bad, so make it good.
Awesome. So, Kendall, I kind of want to stick with you. So Charlie talks about, and he talked about here, being a conservative will not make your life easier. In a lot of ways, it'll make it harder, but it'll make it better. So with that, I looked you up after we hung out at Mar-a-Lago, and I was like, holy cow, this woman got decimated by the media. And you obviously bounced back from it and were able to take the criticism. So with that, and knowing that living a conservative lifestyle is going to be met with pushback, I think a lot of the people in this room are going to inevitably get that. How do you handle the online pushback, the media pushback, and keep your head above water without getting too down on yourself?
Well, you definitely have to have thick skin, but really be confident in who you are and stick to your why. Why is it you're doing what you're doing? What's your motive? Why do you do it every day? And just those people that say things about you, and I know it's so easy to say, just ignore it, block and delete them. But truly, like, what that person is saying, do they know you? Do they know your heart? Have they ever had a conversation with you? Most of the time, no, they don't. They're judging from a distance. And I think that says more about who they are as a person than you. Because if they can cast those stones, if they can say those hateful things, like things that people have said to me, I could not say to my worst enemy. Like, why do they have to be a very sad person. And it's the classic saying, hurt people hurt people. So stick true to who you are. I know it can be hard, but also, God is with you as well. And sticking to your faith, there's been so many times that I've prayed and just been like, why? Or like, just help me be stronger in this situation. And if you really know what you're doing and you know your heart, I think that really helps.
Awesome. Sav, Morgan, anything on that?
I would say if I didn't have my faith, I would not have as thick of a skin that I do now. And I mean, a lot of my past and being bullied is honestly what led me to coming out as a conservative, which
dangerous
I
thing
know,
to do.
very, very dangerous, was canceled by my sorority and all of that stuff. But the thing is it was because I had thick skin and was courageous and knew that I was doing this for something bigger than myself was more impactful and powerful. So definitely stay true to yourself, like Kendall said. But then also, whenever you do go to say something online, it is really hard to ignore it. A lot of people say, ignore it, like you can just not look at your comments. Hate to break it to you, everyone looks at their comments. You can't just fake it. And so a lot of times, I'll look at everything that gets said to me, and I do have to take the conscious effort to ignore those horrible comments that get told to us every single day. The other day, I was canceled by 10 million liberals for saying that Chick-fil-A was no longer the Lord's chicken, it's now the woke chicken on Twitter, to where my name was trending on Twitter for an entire 48 hours. And did it feel good to have millions of people coming at me? No, it didn't really feel that great. But the video was funny. It was supposed to be a joke, but the liberals didn't understand that. So with that, just stay true to yourself and really just don't take stuff from anybody, because at the end of the day, you know your truth, or the truth, not your truth, you know the truth, you know your worth, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And Jobob and Charlie and everyone's right. It's not easier to be a conservative. It's definitely harder to be a conservative out in the open in the world, but know that you're doing something that's going to affect change and change your generation for the better.
Also, focus on where you're spending your time. Why are you spending your time reading those hateful comments, feeling bad about yourself, when in reality you can take that time to learn something, to better yourself, to get outdoors, away from your phone where all those comments are. Just really focus on where you're spending your time, because I've been in it 9 years now. Trust me, I didn't say I ignored the comments for 9 years. It gets easier with time to do it, but I would catch myself spending hours on my phone, and I would get off my phone and be like, what did I do besides feel bad about myself because all of these people hate me? Like, no, I know who I am. Focus on where you spend your time.
Yeah, and I would say too, even removing the social media aspect, but the real world adversity that a lot of you guys will face. So I've been in journalism for about 5 years now. I was banned off of Twitter consecutively 3 separate times after making national news. Struggled with that for two years. It was very difficult, a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle. I would not take that back for anything, because you need that adversity, you need that struggle to find out what you're really made of. And also, I found as well that if the world hates you, good, the world is supposed to hate you. Why would you want to be similar to any of the people of, what is popular in the modern day? What's popular right now is hating the truth, is loving degeneracy, is targeting children with the LGBTQ propaganda, is pushing propaganda down people's throat, is, racial division based on lies in our society. So why would you want to be popular in that type of society? And going back to faith, that is why it is so important. I am a Christian woman as well. That's why it's so important to lean on your faith and God, because it is going to be very difficult, especially for people that are counterculture pushing back. But I think that you can also rest easy knowing that if you really are struggling, it's because you've taken the harder path, and the harder path always leads to the best destination. You guys don't want to be like everybody else. That's super boring. It sucks. And the average person has a very low IQ, my friends. So I'm looking at a lot of smart individuals in this room, and being a leader is a hard thing to do. But like I said, use the adversity, use the struggle, learn from it, grow from it, become the best person that you can be.
Awesome. So I'm curious to pick your guys' brain about this. On social media, I guess, everybody's, whether or not they're a quote-unquote influencer or a blogger, you're influencing the people around you, you're influencing the circles around you. What have you noticed? Morgonn was talking about reading comments, and yeah, everybody reads comments. What have you noticed, like, posting-wise or strategy-wise, that works, and what have you noticed that doesn't work? Like, yesterday, I think Turning Point collabed with a thing on me that was like just a total dud. And so like we banked that and go, okay, so that sort of thing doesn't work. Like, what have you noticed that like really actually does change hearts and minds? And what do you notice that's like, all right, this is not helping?
I can tell you what doesn't work. Posting about guns, hunting, Jesus, God, and being conservative. So my entire brand, social media doesn't like.
But you've changed some people's hearts and minds. So how does that happen?
Absolutely. And that's one thing. Don't get discouraged if your content isn't getting seen by millions of people. Your content is getting seen by, even if it's just 100 people. People see that and they take it in and they digest it. And really just focus towards your audience. Like, my audience is hunting and fishing and the outdoors. They don't want to see my fashion sense. They don't want me to be a blogger and do a try-on session. As much as like I probably would like to do that sometimes, my audience doesn't care to see it. So focus on like what your niche is and like have those 3 main pillars. Mine is the next generation, getting kids involved in the outdoors, conservation, educating people on what the outdoors is all about, and the Second Amendment, educating people on the Second Amendment, because Lord knows we need it in this country. So really focus on that, and I see my best content thrive whenever I put it in one of those 3 boxes.
For me, it's just short form content. People love when I'm talking about a current event and get really upset about it. Like, I don't know what it is, but my following loves to see me angry, especially about the LGBTQ community. So it's really fun. I enjoy making that content, though. Man on the street as well. And like, any one of you can take a microphone with your cell phone and go ask people questions on the street. Every single one of you can do that if that's something you want to do. And like Kendall said with the views, it really doesn't matter, because I was once told this, and this really put it into perspective, is it doesn't matter if you're getting 1 view, 10 views, 100 views, 100,000 views, because what if that 1 view is someone like Charlie Kirk and he shares your video? What if that
That's
1 view
point.
is someone of really big influence, Candace Owens even? What if it's Alex Clark sees it, or the Politics team sees it? What if one of us see one of your videos and it's 10 views, but then we share that? And so that, just as a word of encouragement to continue making content, or even just speaking out in your community, because the one person that you're even talking to in a one-on-one conversation, that person could then go out and talk to 10 more people. So you could be the reason for that ripple effect in your community and online. But yeah, my content, I feel like what Kendall said, like sticking with those pillars, definitely having a niche of what you talk about. So for me, a lot is just social issues happening in the country, and I stay very current with current events, so I'll figure out every morning, okay, what are the trending topics of the day, and then talk about them.
And make sure the content you are putting out, you're passionate about it. It's something you truly care about, because I think that also shows through the content you produce. If it's something you're not passionate about, you don't really care, you're just going to get it out there and people are going to tell that you don't really care about it. So make sure what you're putting out, you care about it, you're passionate about it, and you're proud of it.
So I think, too, one of the questions that we have is, how do we talk to people who would otherwise hate our guts and never want to speak to us if they knew our political leanings or knew that we might not necessarily agree with them? This is another one of my specialties, because I do a lot of man on the streets. I go to a lot of liberal events. I have talked to the LGBTQ community, members of Antifa, Black Lives Matter, take your pick on the left. I've talked to all of them. And I found that one of the most effective ways to actually go and have a conversation with these people is by not necessarily debating and pushing my viewpoints down their throat, but by forcing them to utilize their own critical thinking skills. So, for example, I went to UT Austin, and I had this white student who immediately started apologizing for his white privilege. And so I asked him, what privileges do you have that I don't have? And so it wasn't necessarily like me, trying to tell him that white privilege didn't exist, but making him utilize his own critical thinking and explain his own viewpoint and mindset. So if you guys are running a TPUSA chapter, if you guys are, like I said, just local leaders in any way, shape, or form, or even are interested in how to change minds and open up the topic to that, I think that just simply asking a lot of people who you might not necessarily agree with to explain their viewpoint to you can be a very effective way at changing their mind, because ultimately they'll realize, okay, maybe I don't even know why I think the way that I do. Maybe I am repeating the same talking points that are being given to me by other people. So that can be a really good way to open that up, in the real world. Regarding social media, my entire tactic with that is figure out what people aren't talking about and go and focus in on that issue. So if everybody is focused in on Pride Month because it's June, go find the issue that no one else is really discussing but is still very important to the United States. Like, hey, maybe the economy or gas prices, we constantly have a lot of politicians telling us that we're doing a great job right now, economic-wise, so maybe we go ask students who are actually living under this economy how things are actually doing. So, regarding social media, that's kind of my tactic. Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing.
So Morgan and Sav do man on the street stuff, and when we're on campuses, I'll go and say hi to them because I haven't seen them yet. And they'll be like, "Don't talk to me, I'm undercover." And it's kind of funny. I think Sav got mad at me the first time I met her at Austin.
I did. I was like,
"Don't
Jobob,
talk to me."
I don't know you, bro. Go away. You're too cheery.
We have to go super incognito because we don't want college students knowing who we are. And I just ask some of the most basic questions. But I'm telling you, a lot of college kids can't answer those questions. So it's the 3 whys. Ask them, why do you believe that? Why is that? Just 3 whys and they're done.
So I'm curious about what your guys' thoughts are on this. I hope guys is okay as a word. Am I allowed to say
I
guys?
don't feel gender
genderless,
included.
yeah.
I'm from California. Everything's is guys or dude.
I'm okay with that.
If
All
the
right,
traffic
makes
light doesn't turn green on time, it's dude. Everything is dude. Anyways, so I'm curious about your thoughts on this. There's this online divergence in social media right now. There's platforms like Getter, like Truth Social, like Rumble. How important or not important is it for conservatives to remain on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter's kind of ours now, but Facebook? And we don't have to agree on this. I'm just curious of your thoughts of this. What do you think about society kind of segmenting by which social media platform they use? And how do we handle that as conservatives going forward? Do we play into it more? Do we continue to stay on TikToks? What do you think?
I think that you should stick to maybe 3 main social ones. Have one that is, my 2 are Instagram and Facebook, both hate me. But I think it's super important we still reach out to the liberal side, the left side of things, because that's how you're going to be able to change minds. And that is how our message is going to get out there. If we stick on these platforms that are conservative people only, congrats, we are preaching to our own, and then we're going to divide our own. I think that it's so important that we stick together as conservatives and we stop dividing ourselves. Because I even see that in the hunting industry. My industry is so small. There's not that many hunters out there in the grand scheme of things, and they all want to fight about stuff. I'm like, congrats. the other side just hates all of it, so they just want all of it gone, whereas we're fighting within ourselves. So I think that we need to stick to social medias that maybe don't have the same side as us so we can get our message across, but also put your content on those other platforms too, so you can be building a brand in, you know, the conservative movement as well.
I
What do
think
y'all
I'm on every single platform.
But, okay.
Like all of them.
Do y'all not think it's hard to keep up like with 5 or 6 platforms?
is.
Like if I had to put all of my content on every platform, like I would have 0 life.
I have 11 followers on Truth Social.
Nice.
Like, I can't, I physically can't do it. Anyways, what were you gonna say?
I think it's important to talk to our own people as much as it is to talk to, you know, the other side. So the reason why I go on every platform is because I may find somebody on something like Getter, just whatever alternative media that isn't the mainstream, that then will find me on the mainstream. So really, to me, it's more like a funnel system that I think of in my head, of if I post everything on, like I post take the same piece of content and post it on every single platform. Because the thing is like, you know, if every single one of us in this room, let's say we're all creators, and everyone leaves TikTok, then TikTok's just going to continue to be pushed in the left side instead of us using our voices for the greater good there as well too. I've been banned on TikTok 6 times. I'm on my 7th account on TikTok, and I mean, they really hate me over there, but am I going to continue giving up? No, because if my videos are getting millions of views and actually changing hearts and minds, and then you know, they stumble on my YouTube channel, or they stumble on my Instagram, or they find me on Rumble, then that is affecting positive change. And I've seen way more net positive than net negative of leaving platforms. So people that are like leaving Twitter for alternative media, I don't think is a smart idea, because I think we have to have a strong and powerful unified voice on all these other platforms, because if we leave, who's going to stay?
I think it's great for networking too, because there's different people who are on all these different platforms. So kind of going back to like what Morgan said, is you're building different connections who can find you on other platforms as well, and networking. And I think that, you know, the bigger the better.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people are on these alternative media platforms because they got censored or silenced off of, you know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I know I did. But my message to everybody in this room is be extremely stubborn. Like I said, guys, you know, Morgan's been banned on TikTok multiple times. I was banned on Twitter multiple times. But, you know, in being persistent in that, I didn't realize, and, you know, this might give you guys some hope for the future as well if you've dealt with censorship. During my period of time of being banned on Twitter, I didn't realize how many people were still seeing my work because other people were taking it, they were sharing it, and you know, that was a really big thing that happened. So I know it can be very discouraging as well, but there's a thing called the Streisand Effect, guys. So if you get deleted—
Hold on, wait, explain that. Do you guys know what the Streisand Effect is?
I'm explaining it, Jobob.
Are you
I'm
gonna?
explaining
I was
it.
just gonna.
Well,
Are you gonna
he
like?
gets excited. He
you
gets
can't
excited.
just say Streisand Effect and then. Okay.
There's this thing called the Streisand Effect, and what that is, my friends, is when your video gets deleted, people go, I want to watch the deleted video, and then it keeps popping up in more and more locations, and eventually you see it. Eventually that video gets 10 times the amount of reach that it would have otherwise gotten, and that was essentially my career over the past 2 years with Twitter. When I came back to the platform, my profile blew up. It freaked me out because I was like, I did not realize this many people were looking at my work, and it was really encouraging because I know that a lot of you are in that boat of working really hard, getting your message out, and being silenced again and again and again, and it's extremely discouraging. Like, I can't tell you how many times I cried to my dad, like, these people banned my work again, and every single time he was like, okay, I know you're sad about it, you know, dry up your tears, make another account, go keep going. So that would be my thing to you guys, is like, the alternative platforms are great, but they were created because we were getting censored. But every single time you guys get censored, I think that you should take that as a cue to work even harder. Go make 2 accounts at that point. Push back even harder. Take over all of the social media accounts. Let's you know, destroy the fake narrative, everybody.
I love it. So really quickly, just because I think that this is hilarious, the Streisand Effect started when a newspaper put a picture of the coastline in California out, and Barbara Streisand. Are you guys too young to know who Barbara Streisand is? Okay, so Barbra Streisand, celebrity, has a house on the beach. This newspaper put a picture on the internet of the coastline. Barbra
What year is
Streisand.
this?
What's up?
What year is
Like
this?
2010, maybe. It's so like the internet's brand new. Nobody knows what's going on.
The old days, guys.
Barbra
2010.
Streisand's house was in that photo. Nobody knew, but she knew, and her attorneys then sued the newspaper to take that photo down, in which everybody then was like, wait a minute, Barbra Streisand's house is in this picture? Which one is it? And her trying to take it down amplified the story to a massive proportion that it's now called the Streisand Effect. So in a lot of ways, sometimes getting your stuff taken down will amplify it beyond belief. And I'm sure Sav has plenty of experience with that. So moving on, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I struggle with this a lot on social media, the repetitiveness of restating the same thing over and over again. But I get hit with this quote a lot. I don't know if it's Mencken or Orwell. The first obligation of intelligent people is to restate the obvious, which sometimes is repetitive to me. How do you and how can everyone else continue restating our stated values and goals without make it seeming just like we're saying the same thing over and over and over again? Or should we say the same thing over and over and over again? Because 160 million people voted in the last presidential election. That is less than half of the American population, meaning that more people don't vote than do vote. So maybe restating the obvious is needed for all of those people that are disengaged. Anyways, I'm rambling. What do we, is being repetitive a good thing? Do you struggle with that? Is that something that you think needs to continue? How do you see that? Because I get tired of saying the same thing all the time, but I'm not forced to, but I remember that I have to in a lot of ways.
I think there's a large part of not just our generation, but our country that is so highly uninformed that saying the basics is sometimes needed. I mean, especially like when I've spoken at Turning Point conferences at like different college campuses, especially when there's some kids that have never been to a Turning Point event ever. They've never even seen a conservative commentator. One of their friends just brought them along and they're like, I'm lost and have no idea. Yeah. Saying some of those more talking point things can attack somebody like that and really hit them a lot harder than somebody who's super, super involved in the conservative space. So I do think, to an extent, it is needed to kind of have that repetition, and also with repetition, people kind of like start to get like, oh, okay, I get it now. Because you may tell someone something at the first time, but they're not going to get it till you tell them the third time. So I think it's a little bit necessary, but also have a unique voice with it. I know each of us, you know, we have our own separate content, our own different content styles, our own different speaking styles even. So with that, just being authentic to you, but still talking about what you're passionate about, why is that unique to you, and just continuing to push on the movement. But then also talking about, like what Sav said, new things. Because if you keep talking about just the same things over and over again, it does get boring. And, you know, not everyone wants to hear like taxation is theft 50 times.
It is though.
But it is theft. And then you have to, you know, expand on that, make new content or to have new things to talk about. So that's my take.
I think that there's so much going on in the modern day that depending on what is in the news cycle, you can always use something relevant as an example of whatever point you're trying to bring up. So, you know, Jobob, and to everybody here, I'll be honest, I am one of the victims of the repetition, meaning that I get really tired of it and I get burned out on politics myself. I mean, I have weeks where I'm like, I really don't want to have to go over how bad the economy is again. I know, I'm living it, my wallet feels it. But I think it is really important for us to, you know, when you do see a new tweet come out from, you know, a powerful figure, or you're seeing the gas prices going up, just utilizing that as a new opportunity to maybe bring up the topic or subject. 1,000% it gets repetitive, 1,000% sometimes we are going to feel burned out. But like I said, you keep pushing forward, yeah, you never know who's listening, so I guess utilize that as well to help keep propelling you, knowing that you could potentially be changing new minds, exposing new ideas to new people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure y'all covered most of it. But also, every time you say it, new people see it. It reaches a different audience. It could reach the same people, but maybe this time your message was said differently. They understood it better. And I think frequency really does matter. I know, like on ads or something, it says it takes 10 times for someone to see something before they click on an ad. I think that goes the same thing about seeing videos or seeing content on social media. Maybe sometime they see your picture and scroll past past it. The next time they see it, they read the comment, and the next time maybe they watch the video and they understand the message better. So maybe just saying it different ways, helping people understand, but I do think it does matter to an extent. But yes, it does get tiring saying the same thing over and over and over again, but every time, even if it's like a conversation, I know I feel like sometimes at these events even, I talk to new people every single time, but for the most part, it's kind of the same conversations, explaining my story, but it's to someone new. They don't know it. So for them, even though to you it's old, to them it's new.
Awesome. Yeah, I get tired of saying that birds aren't real, but I have to keep pounding the truth. Anybody have any questions? I think we're gonna open it up for if anybody has any questions. Yeah, go ahead. You can just yell it out loud. I'll restate it for the camera people. Leah Thomas.
Leah Thomas.
Oh, Riley. No.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. So again, I would refer you to the Streisand Effect that I was talking about earlier, because like I said, I did lose my life's work for a period of time as a journalist. And again, at that point, I had Fox News, national news networks picking up my work. I had quite the following, which as an independent journalist, that's kind of like your resume, right? To show that you're credible, show that people trust you. I did lose that for a time because I was willing to push back against the entirety of the nation. So I think you might not like this response, but you should make peace with potentially getting kicked out of the student newspaper. But if that happens, what you need to do is be very vocal about what happened to you at your school, and then that's when the Streisand Effect comes, and then more people start picking up that story, and maybe you even get other students to, stand up and say, hey, why is it that we're not allowed to hear her voice? Because at that point, that's also a free speech issue, because if you're working at a student news organization, everybody should be allowed to have their voices heard. We should be able to look at all opinions there. So I would say don't be afraid to write your pieces, speak your mind. Also make peace with the fact that there may be quote unquote consequences to that. But I think that if you do deal with that, the support that you will get afterwards will be much, much greater than whatever you may have to face.
Cool. Charlie's big on that too. Yeah, just stand your ground. Take that forward. Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't. Where are they based out of? Yeah, have men dealing with like young girls going hunting. I totally get it. Yes, I would love to learn more about that. Maybe write down some information and I can connect with you afterwards. But that's something I would definitely be interested in. Yeah, I mean, that's hard. I totally get it. But getting that content out there, you're going to have to push it yourself. You're not, especially in the hunting outdoor world, it is hard to get, the mainstream people to try and push that. But even the smaller organizations reach out to literally everyone. Like, what is it? No bad publicity is good.
Oh yeah, there's
What
no
is
such
it?
thing as bad publicity.
Yeah, exactly. So getting the word out through every news organization, any tweet, any social media post, I would just keep trying to push it. I've never really had to deal with editors. Have you?
I've had to
Can
deal
y'all
with some
talk on
editors
that
and
point?
stuff like that, and my biggest piece of advice would honestly be to publish your pieces independently. If the newspaper is going to say, no, we're not going to publish this article, do it on yourself. Start a Medium account or some other kind of independent news publication if yours are all written pieces, or start pitching them to other conservative media and become an article writer for even I know Campus Reform is someone who works with independent journalists on different college campuses. Reach out to a lot of those kind of publications to where your work can actually be seen and shared by even people. Like, I share a lot of Campus Reform articles myself so that they can also be seen by a greater audience. So don't allow the school to tell you what you can and cannot say. One, First Amendment violation of freedom of press. Two, you're going to have to deal with that in the corporate world too. Whatever industry any of you guys go into, you're going to have to deal with bosses. You're going to have to deal with people saying what you can and cannot say in workplaces, and you're there to pick up a check, right? Still utilize your voice, and what you do outside on social media, what you do with your press outside of the newspaper, they can't silence that voice.
That would be my advice as well, is utilize your own independent ability to put out your own work. There are a lot of conservative outlets. A lot of my friends, back in the day, I had 10 followers on Twitter. I never expected to, ever become a journalist or have a platform, but because I continued to pursue the truth despite the censorship or despite people saying, hey, if you cover that, it might not be so great for your future. What I would encourage everybody in this room to adopt in their own mindset is you're the boss. Nobody else is the boss. Nobody else should ever tell you what you can and cannot say. You should always be in charge of your life. And in the age of social media, we have every single opportunity to start our own blogs, start our own Twitter accounts, and it's going to be extra work. It's going to be hard work. It's not going to be easy, but it will definitely pay off because you're going to be the one that's in charge. And I think that there's a lot of great conservative media outlets that you can write for. So go get the experience at school. University doesn't teach you guys anything except for how to stay in a box. So disregard everything you learned.
Curse the box. I have bad advice. Do you want to hear my bad advice? Do not do this. Nobody in this room should do this. But wouldn't it be interesting if an opinion piece was written that was so far to the left, making fun of all of the people on the left, that they were forced to publish it for fear of being canceled on their own side? For example, if you wrote an article and submitted it to your newspaper, again, don't do this, by the way, saying that one of your classmates identifies as a cat and you have to clean the cat's litter every day or something ridiculous like that. Think of the most absurd thing you could say. Don't do this, by the way. Thinking of the most absurd thing you say and then submit it to that editor and say, watch this. I think you'd gain a lot of attention doing that too. Again, don't do that. That's a bad idea. It's bad advice. So hey, I appreciate our panel up here, Kendall, Savanah Hernandez, Morgonn. Thanks guys for listening to our jabbering about social media stuff. Why don't you give these guys a hand? Yeah.